cool. That's cool. Are we recording?
We are recording.
There it is.
Yeah.
Let's Deadzone it up.
Yep. Because that's how I roll. I just hit the button, and at some point the show actually like happens.
I love the show, man.
Yeah, it's a fun time. I've been meaning to shout out, and I'll do it on the show, or maybe it'll be in the pre-show if I include this bit. Who knows? Um, there's a podcast out there for Halo Flashpoint now.
No way.
Yeah.
Is it you?
No.
Oh, really?
Which is also great, right? Like, I don't really need another podcast to
Yeah.
But it's the Truth and Reconciliation podcast.
That's legit.
And
But do you know them?
I do not, but I saw them pop up on social.
Okay.
And on Facebook, and I was just giving them a listen to actually the other day. But they're doing a combo of the game, like tabletop game, and Halo lore kind of stuff to get people caught up. So
well, that's perfect.
Yeah,
that's what we need. That's what we need.
That's what we need. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good because that means that we can focus on Deadzone, not Deadzone Engine.
Yeah, that's what makes us Deadzone the podcast. Yeah. And I'm one of your hosts, Bryan.
And I'm Scott.
And I'm Chris, if you can hear me.
Yeah.
We can hear you.
We got you.
Loud and clear,
nice.
Sir.
Welcome to the Deadzone podcast. Deadzone is the sci-fi tabletop.
No minute like the last minute.
It's all good. It was just the perfect segue to ease us into the show. So first off, I just want to say welcome to 2025, the distant future. One day we'll have jetpacks.
One day,
as Scott Pilgrim once prophesized, but it is not this day, unfortunately. But all that to say, it's a new year, and want to check in. How are you guys doing following the holidays and peak of winter, end of year happenings?
Chris, want to go first?
No, go for it. Go for it.
So I am unbelievably excited for this year, and Christmas was a little too busy. Me and my wife decided that we're going to chill out this next year. But we also said that the year before, so who knows? And I'm going back down to a very normal schedule after the 25th. And I think there's going to be a lot more time this year to build, paint, play, everything. And I'm very excited about that.
Absolutely.
Very nice. I have like the opposite resolution of most people. Like my resolution is to paint less models this year than I did last year. Since last
year,
a
machine.
I did over 1,200 models last year. And so I want to get more games in and paint a little bit less and work more on the game side rather than the building armies side. So that's the thing. And then I guess my big news is I so inspired by Scott, have not one, not two, but 3 jobs. But my latest acquisition of a job, which is I'm hoping the one that will be the one job to rule them all and maybe phase the other ones out, is I got hired at Mantic Games.
Woohoo!
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, congratulations, sir.
So I'm working with Rick, who used to be on the show here, and working with Kyle and all the crew, Ronnie and the whole crew overseas, and It's been a little bit overwhelming because I just started this week. um, and I don't know anything really that I could spill, so I don't think I'm in danger of saying anything I shouldn't. So,
All right.
Well, that's good. What we're always here about on Deadzone the podcast is the inside scoop. The secret insiders into the very heart of Mantic, telling us all the things on. And to do that, we're basically a direct line to getting employed at Mantic. That's my big takeaway, right?
right, right.
Like,
You found a niche. You found a
yeah.
niche.
First
Yes.
Rick, and then me, and yeah, you guys are next. So
if anyone else is interested in getting a job at Mantic, reach out and we'll see about getting you on an episode.
Send your resumes. Send your resumes.
But no, that's awesome news, Chris. That's really excited to hear how things are going to shape up. Michigan is definitely, a big old Mantic hub.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're the hub
You know,
for sure.
it strangely is. I was talking to Rick about this earlier today. And Michigan has an abnormally high concentration of Mantic Pathfinders in it. And whereas like in other states, like Ohio, for instance, has a high concentration of Kings of War players.
Mhm.
I believe it.
Michigan has everything. Like we have Kings, we have Deadzone, we have Dreadball, we have Armada. Like yeah, all the games are represented in Michigan.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
I think something that adds to that is like, we don't really have like a big destination city. Like Detroit isn't a place you go out of your way to visit unless you want Buddy's Pizza, I guess. But
Yeah.
and I feel like there's just a lot of gamers. I've always felt like that. There's just, every city across, the south side of the state, everyone is willing to just play because there's nothing else to do.
Yeah, especially in these winter months, right?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, I disagree. Detroit is a destination city. I love Detroit. So.
Oh no, I love Detroit too. I'm actually not hating Detroit, but it's just not like this big tourist thing. To me, there's plenty to do for sure. I guess that contradicts exactly what I just said. But from an outside perspective, I lived out of state. Chris, you did too. No one, really wants to visit Detroit.
I've got to disagree to Scott. I would come back specifically to go to Detroit. I would come back and visit. We'd come back and visit friends, sure, but like we would go into Detroit to like go clubbing or visit museums or, like concerts and things like that's.
I did that last week.
there's a whole bunch of stuff to do here. I think, and Detroit's on the rise. Like the population is up for the first time in a very long time. So
yeah, when I did move out of state, I did miss it. That's for sure.
I'm still kind of, I can't say new to the area because I've now been living in this house in Livonia like for almost 5 years. Like this year will be number. Well, I guess this year will be number 4.
You're a Detroiter, sir.
And I guess so. I work there now, so that helps. But no, it's really. It's there is something about the Midwest. I mean, even historically speaking, in Wisconsin is where you have the inception of Dungeons and Dragons, right? Like the Midwest, it could just be the cold winters when people don't want to go out. We want to stay inside and we're stuck together and having to like make our own fun. But yeah, it's proven to be a really great group of people to A, game with and B, just like to kind of spread and grow as a community. So yeah, not to knock other areas or even other countries, but the Midwest of North America is a special crew, and I'm really glad to be a part of it. But yeah, it's a good place. And yeah, my holidays also kind of wrapped up, went by both quickly and at the same time, like had a couple of days off of work for the holidays, and with it being like all in the middle of the week, like each week that it happened, kind of threw that groove off. And we wound up doing things with family almost the whole time. So I was a bit of running around, but ultimately, had a good time. I will say, like, I did get a set of Mantic terrain for Christmas, so that's always a nice get.
Nice.
Been trying to. I'm kind of weirdly back to like collecting that Mantic terrain again. After having such a slew of 3D printed stuff, doing like I think the Halo Flashpoint side of things has kind of got me going like, okay, I can demo with some of that stuff, but let me see what I can do with Mantic's terrain and getting stuff set up for Halo Flashpoint. So and just in case you hadn't heard, I want to make sure I did call it out in case future editor Bryan cut it out of the intro of the episode. There is a new podcast that's all about Halo Flashpoint, insofar as that we don't have to spend a whole lot of time talking about that game as much as our Warpaths setting. But the Truth and Reconciliation podcast, a couple of guys, they're covering both the new tabletop game from Mantic, as well as covering some more just kind of general Halo lore to get people kind of caught up on current events as they were. So if you are looking for that extra dose of Halo Flashpoint coverage, definitely go check out that podcast. It seems like a great set of guys doing the good work.
Fight the good fight.
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing, like going into 2025, I'm really excited to see kind of that new round of content creators making things for these games, right? Like we had the Mantic Lore podcast guys, which are they're doing great, covering all sorts of history in the Warpath setting. And then we also got the Controlled Fire guys, who are doing a whole lot in the firefight side of things, and really bringing that extra coverage. And I'll also like call out, like, firefight is one of those games where you start getting into that tabletop stratagem, like really good players can plan out their battles. I've always kind of felt Deadzone is it's a kind of a weird space where it doesn't quite fit that mold, and I haven't quite articulated it. Maybe over the course of this year we can dive into those kind of topics, which I'm excited for. And yeah, so there's a lot of great content coming out, and I'm excited for it. Kind of with that, one of the things that happened, not recently by the time this episode airs, but Mantic did put out a video a couple weeks back at the start of the year of just kind of, hyping up 2025, right? And they do have a lot of things going. So obviously Halo Flashpoint's a big one. Got some big updates coming for Kings of War. But they're also really pushing how Firefight is going to continue to evolve and build off of like the Night Stalkers, the Matsudan updates. We got Epic Warpath coming out here in the not too distant future, hopefully. And they've been releasing some shots of the armies painted up and everything, and they're looking sharp.
Is there a release date, Bryan?
So the original release date really kind of like landed it right around Adepticon. And I won't put Chris on the spot for him to like confirm or deny, you don't want to break an NDA on your first day on the job.
Yeah.
But don't worry, this comes out on the 28th. It's you got plenty of time. But the original date was like kind of right around the Adepticon timeline. So admittedly, I haven't heard if they're off target on that or if they're on target. Obviously, we keep seeing updates on the Kickstarter from them. They've been pretty good about doing that. So yeah, I'm thinking early this year we will probably see Epic Warpath,
Very, very nice.
and it'll be in our hands.
Yeah,
And then we can play.
I'm a full backer. I'm looking forward to it. I did whatever the all-in package is, High Command, I think is called, and then I ordered, because you get like 4 army boxes with that, like the infantry boxes, and so I ordered 4 more army boxes because there's 8 factions, and I got one of every single army.
That's
So,
legit.
and then with the STLs, I'm excited for Warpath to drop. I have a friend who is less excited only because he is the friend who prints things for me, and he knows that the minute those STLs drop, he will be printing all of my things. So
You got to put them to work.
yes. But I'm really excited to see that. I love that scale of game, and I got to play test some of it as well, so I'm going to be very careful what I say about any of it. And it's a fantastic game though, and I know I play tested very early on, and there was still like, you're doing what you're supposed to do. You're getting the bugs out.
Mhm.
And I could definitely see the potential in the game already though. And so I think they've since then they've worked out some of the kinks and some of the problems that had kind of come up, and nothing major, but just balancing units, things like that, trying to get things like, this seems a little too powerful, this seems a little like under costed or over cost, so but yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I have 2 boxes coming, 2 armies, and then I guess the rules too. And I just think that it completes almost the entire line of Warpath universe stuff. And so I think we could start doing we could do a campaign over a planet if we have this game.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
that'd
we
be
could.
pretty sweet.
Everybody always wants to do the whole, because I know like the almost is like, we need a space game with spaceships, and except that everyone always talks about doing a campaign like that. Nobody ever actually does it.
It's just so big.
It's hard to pull off, that's for sure.
And I shouldn't say nobody, but it very rarely, 1, launches, and 2, ends successfully. Because we've talked about like doing that with Kings and Armada and Vanguard, and it's like, it's so ambitious to tie all those things together, but it could be done.
Yeah, I think it would be really neat if they so kind of speaking of Vanguard, like one of the things that the old Vanguard book included was like these little Kings of War hooks that could get worked into some of the scenarios. So like there's a whole one of like lighting beacons and stuff, right? And so like that event could inform then your next Kings of War game, where you in fact have an impact on the setup, where okay, like half your opponent's forces aren't on the field because they didn't have the alert beacons lit.
I like that.
Those kind of like simple hooks could be a neat way for Mantic to really do that kind of like tying their games together, without it being maybe necessarily like a huge like here's the tome on how to play all these games in conjunction.
But my thing is, I think a campaign book, like how to run a campaign. This is the campaign rules. Like it requires these other games, but I think a product like that would be awesome, in my opinion.
No, I would be absolutely ecstatic if we got a campaign book especially one that maybe even covered each game, if not independently, like each one getting its own book, but like one that like here's how to run a campaign for Deadzone. Here's one for Firefight. Here's one for Warpath, because that was something that was like missing from like Firefight, and like Deadzone had different campaign rules, and in second edition we even had like campaigns where it was a narrative based campaign.
I like that.
Nexus Psi had a whole like series of missions that you could play, both in a single player space where you're playing against just zombies, and one that's a 2-player campaign where each one has goals to achieve, and you're working through kind of this story of that planet. So I think that would be a really cool supplement. And I was actually thinking like getting into, if not wishlist, like I think Deadzone 3rd edition is kind of due for that next like command protocols edition, where it's not a full new version, but it's kind of that next layer, because we obviously have more factions to add to the book now. With the Night Stalkers and the Matsudan. Obviously, part of that is I think the lists are still in beta technically, and that's not uncommon for Mantic. Like they do sometimes like run beta lists for about a year, and like when you kind of think about it, the I think they don't have the data in the top of my head, but it was like in the summer that the Night Stalkers like came out, and so like they usually try to do like that full year, especially to get the tournament scene to bring back feedback, and see how they perform, and that's when I think they get more of the formal. All right, here's the supplement with their updated stats. They're now like official locked in factions.
Yeah, it's so many moving parts that go into a war game, especially when there's 18 different factions that you can choose. Although Deadzone's not that many, but if you introduce one, it changes not just the one that you're adding, it changes everything. Like how all of them interact with that too. So it just takes time.
Yeah, absolutely. And balancing these factions against one another, especially now that we have so many, is always a challenge. Like that's kind of the challenge Vanguard had when it first came out. Was I think there was almost every faction in Kings of War was represented in Vanguard, but they kind of all came out at once, and so it was like balance, like everything had new stats, so it was like trying to juggle and balance all those different factions was a big challenge that that game faced. So I do like that approach of like the smaller faction count to start, and you really build it up, and that's how a good way you can kind of keep it balanced. And Mantic's been good about that in Deadzone. So always excited to see new factions hit the list though, and hopefully maybe it'll include a new premiere of Reb stuff. Who knows?
I know you need it.
Yeah, I need
still
it.
That social media goal, right? Like that's still going.
It's still going. And it's funny because like I've been talking to a lot of different folks now, and some people are like, was it a realistic goal? Like, is it achievable? Are you reaching the right audience to try and get people on board with a social media goal like that, where it's so intrinsic to people who are fans of the game already, but maybe less so for newer folks getting in. But it's one of those things that I like the idea of a social campaign around it, and I think ultimately I'm going to keep pushing it because man, I want the Rebs, so I will keep fighting that fight.
So like and subscribe, everybody.
Or like and subscribe to Mantic and get your brothers and your sisters and your parents and your little dog too.
For the cause.
For the cause.
I mean, more importantly, get your gaming clubs. Get your friends who are playing these games with you to break down their barriers, create a Facebook account so they can go on and like this.
Yep. Absolutely.
Or Instagram
or
YouTube or
Yeah. Go just follow Mantic wherever those social platforms exist, because there's so many of them right now, and that landscape's changing. Not gonna lie, it's a weird time. So, but times change all the time.
We should put that in quotes, Bryan Novak.
Times change all the time. You can tell it's a Friday that we're recording this, and I'm at my wit's end. But yeah. So, what would be things that you'd like to see in a supplemental book beyond just kind of the confirmation of these factions that are in beta, kind of getting their final stamp? Would you? Yeah, I'll throw out the question first, and then I'll maybe throw in my thoughts.
Grizz, what do you think?
So, like a supplemental book for a particular game, or like a overarching campaign book?
Just specifically like a Deadzone, because I feel like Deadzone's the one that's kind of due a new supplement. Over Firefight, and obviously Warpath is coming out yet. So
right. Well, I mean, I would love to see what we had talked about, like something that ties the different games together.
Mm-hmm.
But like specific to Deadzone, I mean, because Deadzone has a really robust campaign built in already.
Mm-hmm.
And it strikes me as very more like a gaming league rather than a narrative campaign.
Yeah.
And I think it's really good for that purpose. But like, I would like to see something that is a little more storytelling. That and I don't know if Mantic wants to take a page from other companies that have done things like that, where you put out a campaign book that has. Well, I mean, they've done it. They've done it in Kings of War, right? Like Halpi's Rift, and the various campaigns they've done, where you add different ways to play scenarios. You add different, and it maybe it messes with the balance of the game a little bit, but it tells a bigger story and creates some excitement in the game.
Unbalanced can be fun too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was to say, like, if you know what you're getting into, I think that's good. Like, I think all players need to have an understanding going into a game of what to expect, because it's that expectation that like can lead to disappointment. If you go in and you're not expecting something like that to occur, and you kind of get those gotcha moments, that can really ruin a game experience for somebody. But if you go in, both players go in, they know what it's all about, they know the kind of weirdness that can happen, then it can be a lot of fun. So we'll see. Like some unbalanced, some asymmetrical. There's the word. Some asymmetrical scenarios I think would be really interesting. Real strong attacker defender type things.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe even have it where, like, if you're doing a narrative campaign, where like there's consequences for winning and losing games. That could roll over like advantages or bonuses into the next game, or let the winner decide the course. Like maybe it's like a tree type campaign, but the winner decides which route they go down after each game, that kind of thing.
That could be neat.
Yeah, I love it.
It would be I guess, Scott, it's your turn.
Well, so the original question is, what would we want?
Yeah.
So to me, if a supplemental book came out for Deadzone, I think I'm kind of with Chris. We're like a narrative thing. It doesn't have to be like a whole story, but maybe just like some lore, because it's already pretty open-ended lore, which I like, which is really good. I think if they just like, I don't know, maybe doubled it or something like that, and there's even more you can do. And I think a campaign is such an easy way to introduce more story. like
Mhm.
not just to your individual table games, but like on the entire narrative as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we said previously, maybe if there's folks coming from the Halo Flashpoint side, we've kind of mentioned before, like Halos is a great kind of like arena battle multiplayer game, whereas Deadzone really does kind of shine in that narrative space. Like it's your band of heroes duking it out. And so yeah, really doubling down on that narrative, like a setting. Mantic has just done so well with like creating settings for their campaigns in the past, not only in the book formats but the global campaigns that they've run.
Yes.
I'm thinking now there's been 2 or 3, at least 2, since like the Magnetar was a couple years ago now, and then we just had the Tertia event, and like within the scope of those campaigns, they did really experiment with those kind of asymmetrical scenarios, and there was things like weather effects and earthquakes and rising water, like all sorts of weird things that really manipulate the environment to make that an additional kind of challenge and adds a little extra flavor. So I think even just kind of pulling from where they saw a lot of success, and hopefully they have some metrics of like which of those game modes people played more. Like I think that would be a really cool pool to pull from and just be like, oh yeah, let's do a scenario that has this power plant setting, and everyone can get electrocuted if they stay on the ground too long, or here's one that's flooding and you could get knocked off, and your character could drown, or they can only move one action per round while they're in the water. All sorts of really cool things that really just kind of if you manipulate and tweak just like one mechanic in Deadzone, I think it still really shines, but it adds that extra level of flavor. I think, and I'm dipping here a little bit too, is we saw through the vault, we had all of those. They weren't called elite lists, but the preset 200 point set teams that you could pull in, such as the Arius team, the Arius mercenaries, the Hands of the Seven. There's the Nameless and the Veermen, like there's the Nuts and Bolts one. I think really kind of leaning into that is something. The last, and this will maybe bleed into the next topic. So one of the last things they did with Dreadball was this Magnetar circuit book, which was kind of an upgrade to the second edition that was made, and it had all the balancing of the teams and everything like that. But a component of it, which I found really compelling, was this what they call historical matches, and in essence, it was the idea that here are teams that have gone through a league experience, i.e., a campaign where certain players had injuries and buffs and all sorts of other kind of modifiers that made them kind of characters. And then you like pitted them against each other in a unique setting. And so there was one where they're like playing on top of a flying airship and you could get knocked off and die. There was another one where you're playing in a swamp and there was vines everywhere. To kind of take that concept of here's a preset team that has all those kinds of like scars and experience and merits and stuff. Here's a GCPS faction that's 150 points or 200 points. They seem to like 200 points, so let's say 200 points. But that has gone through what is a Deadzone campaign. And like here's the Maison Labs, the rough and tumble squad, and all their battle scars, and just like bringing that and then dropping it in a setting, I think could be a really neat step in
Sure.
in the side, just to add that extra little bit of flavor. It's like, not only is it a new setting that you can play your own guys in, here's an example of what a faction that has been through a campaign looks like.
Yeah, just little varieties, little spice, kind of in the
Yeah.
mix. Yeah.
And I think Deadzone has room to do that, right? Like
Mhm.
Mantic is really, and I'm saying this with my bias I came into before I was a Mantic employee. Mantic is really, really good at writing well-balanced games, right?
Mhm.
Like, I think Kings is beautifully balanced. From what I've seen of Firefight, what I've seen of Deadzone, like I think their games are well written, they're easy to play, they're engaging, and they're balanced, and so they're fun to play because of that. Especially if you're like a competitive tournament player, that's generally the end goal for that type of player, right? But then there's also like the storyline players, like the narrative players, and they want to have the kind of things that we're talking about right now. And I think Deadzone, you could do that. Like one thing I would love to see, because like I know like people, and I've had this conversation with lots of people over the years, many different gamers, and there's the idea that like I love special characters and I want to play special characters because they add this flavor and they have this lore. And then there's the I want to make my own special characters. Like
Mhm.
give me the ability to either through campaign play of gaining experience or maybe like a point buy right out of the gate where I can make my own character and add some abilities or gear to make them unique and different, and that they bring something to the game and feel like this individual hero that I made. And I'm of that camp. I would rather make my own characters than play someone else's,
Totally.
Mhm.
and that gives conversion opportunities and stuff too, right? Like to make the toughened, GCPS Ranger Lieutenant who has been through countless battles and has the battle scars and maybe a cybernetic arm, and there's maybe a benefit they get for having that. And I think that's an element that could be added to, especially games like Deadzone where you're only controlling, a dozen models at most, really.
Mhm. They can be really individual
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
and
and let
unique.
you do that, let you really build those models up. And then the other thing, like you're talking about with like adding environmental effects, I mean, the global campaigns do that, but give that to us in a book afterwards, because when the global
Yeah.
campaign turns off, we lose all those rules. And
I've been
Right.
trying to archive some of it actually for the
um,
fans.
and Deadzone already has the command dice, and so it would be really easy to add a mechanic to a scenario of like, hey, we're playing during a lightning storm, and so at any point you can sacrifice, say, 2 of your command dice on your turn, and have a lightning strike come down onto the board. And you could treat it like a attack where you pick a cube, like an indirect fire type attack. You got to roll dice with a set shoot score, and it can scatter, so maybe it doesn't hit where you want it to hit.
Yeah.
And then maybe it just suppresses everybody in that cube, but it can only hit top level cubes. Like it can't go underneath and hit something underneath another cube. It can only hit something on the top level in any
See, that's
area.
fun.
And you could have something like, you could add a mechanic like that very simply. It adds a fun flavor, but you're paying for it with a resource because you're burning your command dice to make it happen. And so that adds a little bit of that balance back into it. Anyway, just throwing ideas out there.
No, I love it. I love it. That literally sounds so fun. It's like the
It's
lightning rod game mode.
maybe that's what we need to do in 2025 here is revitalize the Deadzone the podcast campaign. Because a couple of years back, Rick and I designed I think a 4 or 5 mission campaign that
Oh, nice.
involved things like shutting off a power station, a outbreak during a dreadball match, the like big old train heist, and I forget what other thing we came up with. There was at least 3.
Nice.
And I think that's a fun way to experiment and share with the community. So maybe we'll look into that. If you guys want us to put out another the 2025 edition of Deadzone the podcast campaign, leave a comment on the episode. Let us know, and we'll see about see what we can do. It's going to be a wild year. Yeah. If you want Scott to work on putting together this Deadzone to to firefight to epic warpath to imaginary sci-fi space armada battle game,
I'm down.
he'll do
I'm
it.
up for the challenge. I'm up for the challenge.
I'd love to see a book like that. Really, like I think they could do like one book per universe, right? Like one book for the Warpath universe that ties Warpath, Firefight, and Deadzone together, and then
Mhm.
another one that ties together like Kings, maybe with Vanguard or more with Ambush, even like have some back and forth with that, and then tie in Armada as well.
Yeah.
And
then
it could be like
another
you could have
book.
layers of options even. So,
But that there's another book that makes it where they find Phaneuf in the Warpath universe. Then they land their ships on Phaneuf. Boom, connect it all one big giant. thing.
Well, you know, we might not be far off because the Night Stalkers got here from
Yeah.
another universe.
that's true.
Right.
And so they got here somehow.
Phaneuf is just a planet. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. That's the Scott theory.
On the other side.
Yeah. On the upside
The
down.
coin. But yeah, so that's some of the stuff we're wishing for in the distant future of 2025. And so
All
with
three
that,
of those books done in a year.
yeah. Hey, you know, it's good to have ambitious goals, we'll say.
Do it up.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And so kind of with that, I do want to lead us into our hobby table section of the show. This is where we talk about the stuff and projects we're working on on our painting, our modeling, or crafting tables, our gaming experience going on right now, and that section of the show is brought to you by Corvus Games Terrain, making 3D printed files for all cubed up for your Deadzone needs. Perfect for firefights, and I dare say I think there's a handful of things that are for a little smaller scale as well. So we'll see how many that get made to support the epic scale. But he's been a great supporter of the show. Has had really awesome stuff coming out lately, such as the Space Dwarf themed set, which I'm going to stop trying to pronounce on the show. But you can use the code DZPodcast15, that's a 15, and on your checkout to get a little bit of a discount on your order. And then additionally, the hobby table is also brought to you by Acid House Terrain, making some great foldable cardboard terrain that just really brings a whole bunch of life to your table. Perfect for firefights. And all sorts of other, even Kings. They've got a fantasy range, but a really awesome cyberpunk and sci-fi set that's great for firefight and even some Deadzone ones. So definitely check those out. You can get a whole lot of them, and they're so easy to transport. We're big fans here at the show. And so yeah, hobby table. I'll start us off by saying I really don't have anything going on my hobby table right now. I finished
for a
up
reason, though. For a big reason.
For a pretty big reason. At the time that this episode drops, I will probably still be at the hospital. As it just so happens, we're expecting our little girl to be arriving here at the end of January. We had a little bit of an update since I think we last recorded. So it's going to be a January baby instead of a February one. But everything's good. So I will likely post something when the new gamer enters the field here.
Arrives.
But so I've got a couple of sleepless nights ahead of me, and maybe I'll be able to fit some painting in there. Who knows? when I'm just on watch.
No, Brian, you and I should do a paint day while you're acclimating to your new lifestyle. We should totally just get online and just paint.
No, that would be a really fun time.
Oh yeah, I don't know why we don't do that more often. Just paint parties.
I think part of it is I need to clean up my hobby area a little bit, so that I could actually like set up some kind of camera thing down where I do that. But no, that actually sounds like a really fun time.
I'll get that going. Going.
So have you had anything on your hobby table recently, or are you still pretty busy, as it were?
So, okay, this is for me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so my thing has been like routines are adopted now. And so everything's at the point where I'm like, you know what? I can do a little flexing. It's kind of nice. It's not so bad. So I haven't actually started painting anything since Rose been born, but I now have things planned for. I've built stuff. And I've written out what I want to do for the next project. I get again, the 25th is when it all starts. At the end of the month, I'll be able to paint. I actually, in my free time, I wrote a rules set for just fun. And I know I've talked about it here a little bit, but I think it's about done. And I'm thinking about sharing it with people. So that might be something fun to paint for. Totally inspired by Deadzone and Firefight. Rules wise. So it's kind of taking some of that system, parts of it that I like, and turning it into another thing.
Awesome.
And I don't know, it'd be kind of fun to just take some of the models I had from Kings of War and just toss them in, but that's pretty much all I've done. And I think I'm just going to paint something not planned for an army, just get a couple things together, paint it up, just, exercise those muscles, and then go from there.
Nice. No, that does sound really fun. We'll have to try that out sometime.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, put us all to shame.
I got you guys covered. I got your painting quota covered. You're good.
How many? Let's start it off by saying, I met with you. What was it, the second or third day of the year?
Yeah, it was the third. I remember.
How many models had you already painted for 2025?
10.
In 3 days?
Down. Yeah.
Okay.
I've slowed down a little bit. I'm at 47 models today as of the time of this recording. So we're a little more than halfway through the month right now. I have on the desk right now, I have a battle mech because I'm painting a lance of mechs every month.
Nice.
Turns out you get a pretty big collection when you do that consistently for 2 years. And so I'm doing that. I have, for the first time in a long time, I have a Marvel Crisis Protocol model on the desk. I have the Red Skull. I have a Goblin Wizard. It is a Mantic Kings of War Goblin, but I'll be using him in our upcoming Frostgrave campaign as my wizard. I love the Mantic Goblins. They're the best goblins out there, in my opinion, aesthetic-wise.
I really dig them too.
Yeah, they're cool.
I'm working on some 40K orcs. I don't play 40K, but I'll be using them as marauders. They're kind of legacy models for me that I have left over from my 40K days. And I'll be using them as marauders in Firefight. And they're a very Mad Max theme. And it's just, I couldn't let go of the models because of the theme that I had done with most of this army. And then the other thing that's the big thing is I'm working on Night Stalkers for Kings of War. Trying to get a 2,300 point list done this year. And I'm working on strangely Night Stalkers for Deadzone, like we had talked about last time. I said Plague. I ended up settling on Night Stalkers. I have a new color scheme for them that's very different than what I'm doing for Kings. And I have the first model on the desk that I will probably finish tomorrow.
Nice.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
So a couple things, and I'm working on a really big terrain package. I don't know if I want to say who it's from because it's not one of our sponsors.
It's all good.
But I'll say I bought this really cool MDF terrain package from a company who does a very Venice-like setting for one of their skirmish games. And so it's lots of like platforms. So you can put a water mat down, and you put all the platforms, you put your buildings on, and then you have it creates the canals and the empty spaces
Well, that's
that way
cool.
on the water
Mhm.
map. And I'm not doing it for their game. I'm just doing it because it's something I wanted to do for other games, including games like Frostgrave or skirmish games, or I don't know, Vanguard. You know,
It'd be
so
neat to have it in Deadzone.
I was about to say, like
it could.
we could order pizza and battle it out in Venice.
I mean, we could because we could use the platforms to create like a different levels, and then we could put more sci-fi ramshackle buildings on top with the modern architecture ones. Like, yeah, there's no reason we couldn't use a mixture. So I bought way too much, like $300 worth of stuff from them. It's enough to really code a 4x4 table. I have cracked open one of the packs that had 10 pieces in it. I've built 8 of them and painted 5 of them. And that's been in the last month. I paint terrain way slower than I paint anything else because it usually requires me breaking out the airbrush and stuff. But they look good. I got
It's a
5
bigger
pieces
thing,
done.
too,
They look good, and I'm really happy with them so far. So
Very cool.
that's it. That's all that's on the desk,
That's it. That's all
No,
that there is.
yeah. But no, it is awesome. It is awesome to see, and they really are works of art, Chris. I know we've said that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, they're
Mhm.
really cool.
Yeah. So we'll have to make sure that I gotta connect you to the Facebook account so you can post pictures and stuff that you're working on too, or else
Oh
just
yeah.
start sharing them.
Yeah. I'll gladly throw pictures your way. I put stuff on like the King's War Fanatics and Dead
Yeah,
Zone
yeah.
Fanatics and Firefight Fanatics occasionally when I get stuff done. I haven't been doing much Firefight because I finished 2 armies last
Yeah.
year for Firefight, and now I'm painting orcs right now, but they're not Mantic models, so I'm not really like pushing those out there. But the 2 armies I finished, and like now I got to play games, so I need people to come play games of Firefight so we can.
Let's do it.
It's because
I need
I
reasons
can't.
to finish my Asterians.
It's hard to justify starting a 3rd army when you have 2 armies that you don't play.
Totally.
That is the tough part. But no, we'll have to get together and on a baby day, like there'll be 2 babies there, and then the 3 of us gaming Firefight.
I'll use my son as an abomination proxy.
Just, No, that'll be a fun time. So really cool. And I'm realizing I segued us a little bit too early because I skipped over a topic that I wanted to talk about, which was one of the other hints, the things that Mantic hinted at coming in 2025 was the Dreadball All-Stars
Woo!
thing. It was, for those that maybe missed it, it was in the video I mentioned, and it is literally like a second long picture of saying Dreadball All-Stars, and right after their Kings of War Champions thing. And so it definitely means, we're Dreadball's coming back in some fashion.
Nice.
And I have no idea what fashion that is. I'm definitely excited. And I'm interested to see, like, does this mean new models? Does it mean, are we going maybe the whole 3D printed route? I know it seems ages ago now when they were doing some of the vault presentations, they had Dreadball minis kind of in their little display of things that were ultimately like earmarked for the vault. So does that mean that maybe those are waiting until this All-Stars package comes out? Not sure ultimately. But I'm happy to wildly speculate. I think it's going to be a really cool relaunch of hopefully the model range. I think it would be really cool to see a new game mat and potentially a few new characters, a few new MVPs. it'd be interesting to see if there was some kind of adjustment where it was more MVP focused. So because you guys, I know you hadn't had a chance to play it. Like it was just normally like you have your Dreadball team, and it was just a mix of kind of regular player roles, and that you could add a captain to your list, but they weren't kind of built into the list inherently. So I'm wondering if that's an element that we'll see. But it was that thing where like Dreadball was that like in second edition, there was like so few rough edges around it, right? Like it was a really rock solid rule set. So it'll be interesting to see what like if there are big rules shake up. Like hopefully not back to the drawing board, but sometimes that's what it takes to really revamp and re-kick off a game like that. So I'm pretty stoked for it. I will speak to, so it was a little controversial when that picture came out. It was revealed that there was used AI art to generate that image. It's a topic that I think the community feels very strongly about, with how AI art is generated and how that's kind of resourced. But I know Mantic. I did see one post that spoke to that ultimately it was to kind of get an initial concept, but that the rest of the actual art that'll be like in the book and everything will be sourced by an artist. So that is something that has been stated. So hopefully that assuages people's concerns around that. It's always that tough thing with it being a small organization and needing to churn stuff out quickly, but hopefully that's kind of taken to heart. It comes from a place not of I would say like a hipster thing or anything like that. It's more of a lot of people are care a lot about artists who create art, especially for games like these, and making sure that they are supported.
It's part of the fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's somebody's creative energy incepting things into the world. So I'm all about that, and it's great to hear that ultimately like that's Mantic's direction as well. So wanted to speak to that because it was a pretty heated discussion following that post. But ultimately, I think they got good heads on their shoulders and took that feedback in stride. So yeah, got fun stuff coming ahead.
Yeah. To me, it's to me. I don't think it's like it never really upsets me that much, but like part of the fun are the artists. Like that's part of the fun. Like in my opinion, like yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lose sleep over anything, but
it helps bring the worlds to life to have good art though, and to have somebody who can paint that picture literally for us and just breathe that extra life. Sometimes there's like just elements in the pictures that will inspire you as a gamer, as a painter, as a hobbyist. And so yeah, that's like I've said for years, like the whole, like one of the things that made me play Pathfinder over Dungeons and Dragons is the fact that Wayne Reynolds does their art. Like he just brings so much life to things. And it was really funny because earlier in 5th edition D&D, I was like going through a book and I'm like, man, I'm not normally like a big D&D guy, but like I'm feeling this book right now. Like I'm feeling this campaign setting. And it was Eberron. Guess who did the art? Wayne Reynolds. So yeah, like you just like, oh, like okay, like yeah, like his art style just really resonates. And there's a couple artists out in that field who do that. Like I see their stuff and I'm like, no, that is it right there. Like that is what brings the world to life.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason why I got into like gaming, my dad had like this Larry Elmore painting in his office, like at work, and I'm just like, Dad, this is so awesome. This is so legit,
Oh yeah.
That's part of the fun. It's part of the fun.
Yep.
Absolutely. So definitely looking forward to more of details on that game, and especially the art, because Dreadball is such a visually explosive
Tron.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Tron meets Rollerball, and
Yes.
so excited to hear more news on that, Mantic. Please, as soon as humanly possible, give us. And that, all that to say, to wrap up the episode, I did want to shout out the Adepticon registration is live. I know we did, last episode talking all about the events. They are a bit more defined now. I will say, not just because I had to put packets together for all of them, but but I put packets together for all of the Halo events and all of the Deadzone and Firefight. So those packets should probably be live by now. I can't imagine they wouldn't be. But if you have more questions on what the details of those events were, I know there was a little confusion on some of the labels of them in the first pass at the events list. That should hopefully be corrected at this point, denoting like the Halo stockpile event, and how that's different than the Halo, U.S. Nationals tournament. So won't go over that again in this episode because it's already pretty long. But just know, go and get those early registrations in. Pre-registration is so important for an event like that. It really tells the folks at Mantic, what to expect, and these events are filling up fast. I think most of the smaller Halo games and Halo events, I think might already be filled at the time of this recording. So if you are interested in catching any of those, hop on them as soon as you can. Get those pre-regs in, and it's a great time to hop on the Mantic train.
It's time. It's time.
So with that, I think we'll call it a wrap.
Sweet.
Woohoo. And like, share, and subscribe to all the social media channels that our show is on and Mantic is on. and all of our friends of the show, like Family of Gamers 777 and Mobile Arm Radio. I also record on that show. Well, you might not hear me for a bit because we record later. But yeah, anything else you guys want to share?
No, I think that's it. I mean, let's rock and roll. Let's wait to see what happens.
I think we covered it all. I think by the time this airs, our local tournament will be over already. So we have a Kings of War tournament coming up here soon. So hopefully that all goes smoothly and we don't have a giant blizzard that day.
Yes, hopefully.
Yeah,
like last time.
Yep.
That's the downside of having and it's not the first time. Like you think we would have learned our lessons. Like I've run, I think, 2 or 3 Deadzone events in like January, February, and I even made them winter themed, and invariably weather becomes an issue and like half the attendants are knocked out of the list. So it's a tough time for the long travels, but definitely look around you and see if there's a massive event going on, and if you can make it. Otherwise, drive safe out there.
Yes.
The most important thing is arriving so that your dice can explode.
Yes.
Nice. That's the way to do it.
So with that, that's the show, everybody. We're done. Good night. Yeah.
Still recording.
Yeah, I just let the tape run for a little bit.
Yeah, man. It's all good. So we should really do In fact, I'm going to spearhead it. Okay, an online Discord, Metro Detroit Plus for outside of Metro Detroit. You can join too as long as you're in the Discord. Paint sesh.
That could be really cool.
Because the thing is, I get so much done chatting with people, painting. You know what I mean? But no one ever wants to bring all their stuff somewhere. So we have the internet. We don't need to go anywhere. We have the internet.
That actually would actually be a really cool thing to just do for the show. Like, just hey, come paint with the guys, and then Chris can like tell us. You can just show us up and just be like, bam, bam.
Yeah. Or like, let's say like
scheduling it.
You know color theory well at this point if you're painting like that. So like anyone got questions about like, hey, what's a good color to mix with this? You'd be like, oh, well, I know this because I did that. You know, we can all talk. Like I feel like that is a decent idea. I don't know why we haven't been doing that. That's how good of an idea I think this is.